Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined for the first time on the channel by Ben. You might know him as Hylian Homeslice over on Twitter. His link will be at the top of the description. You definitely want to follow him. And while you're down there following Ben, join our Discord. Link's right down there. Like, subscribe, you know what to do. Ring the bell, doesn't matter, because today we're not here to do the plugs. We're here to talk about the Wii U and just give a little bit of a retrospective on our history with the system, why we love it so much, and some of the flaws it has, and kind of just look back on an era of Nintendo's legacy that I think people are too harsh on personally. But Ben, I kind of want you to start. You're the guest. How did you begin with the Wii U? When did you get yours?
Oh, wow. Okay. Hello, first of all. I'm English, as you can probably tell. But yeah, thanks for having me. And the Wii U, I started day one, or it was meant to be a midnight launch and queued up. Hardly anyone was there. It was my first console midnight launch. And you have this vision in your head of a line going out the store, and it was just maybe five people. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, okay, not the best start. I don't know, maybe certain time of the month, not payday. Who knows? Who knows, right? So I line up to get it, and the card declined. I did not get paid. It was meant to be like payday because I was getting paid weekly at the time. I was like, damn, what the hell's going on? So yeah, boring story aside. Next day, picked it up, not a problem. Got the deluxe, the black
Nice.
deluxe one right here that's just been wiped clean of all its dust. Um, so yeah, I got that with Nintendo Lands and New Super Mario Bros. U, and yeah, it was very mixed, much like the Wii U's short but bittersweet life. It was yeah, it was weird to boot up New Super Mario Bros. U. I think I played for the first time. Sat there, got an hour or so in, and it was just like, hmm, yeah, this is a 2D Mario game. It's slightly shinier, and that's about it. It was just really
Yeah.
weird. You have expectations of a new console. I mean, for me with the Wii, I got that for Christmas when I was like a teenager. Even like PS4 and the Switch, obviously, like you have this vivid memory, and it's usually a good one, of picking it up and just being like, wow, whether it's the game, whether it's the system, or a bit of both. And the Wii U was just kind of like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
it's fine. And then you in the back of your mind, like kind of panicking, going, oh God, I've just spent like, I think it was like £320, £350 on this. And the other half used like, well, it'd be okay. We'll get a Zelda, we'll get a Metroid. Some of those we did, some of those we didn't get. Yeah, right. But yeah, it was a very bittersweet feeling, I think. And I do remember just at launch, those were the only two games I got. I didn't pick anything else up for a while. And it kind of just, I think I had an Xbox 360 at the time, just switched back over to that straight away, like after maybe a week of just really trying to force yourself into going, I will enjoy this, but
Yeah.
it just not necessarily happening. It was a very slow start. And I mean, we all know how it went in the end, but definitely didn't start with a bang. It was kind of a very small little whimper and then not much else.
Yeah, the early Wii U lineup was definitely not ideal. It took a while to pick up
Yeah.
steam, and for me, I got lucky in some respects, I suppose, because I got my Wii U in 2014, September 2014, which is when, there's already a pretty good base of software there, and we were really starting to get releases at your Mario Kart and Smash
Hmm.
Brothers and all those things. But the Wii U came out, I was 11. I'm not walking around with enough money to buy a Wii U then, so I couldn't get it right away and ended up not getting it for a couple of years. It was the beginning of eighth grade for me. I broke my wrist at sports practice and I was laid up for 2 days. Like, fuck. I was watching a lot of Mario Kart 8 videos on YouTube, and I returned to pestering my parents for a Wii U again. And so I traded in some stuff. They covered a little bit of the difference, and a couple days later, I had surgery, and then I was back home with a new Wii U. So pros and cons for the week there. But
Right.
so I ended up having Mario Kart 8 and New Super Mario Brothers U first. And I enjoyed them quite a bit, and they hit differently for me because the Wii was my first HD system, which made those games feel bigger, feel more important.
Mm,
Um,
definitely.
because I
Mm.
was playing a lot on 3DS, but in terms of home consoles, I was playing a lot on my Wii still and my PS2. So just having an HD system was a
Sure.
huge jump for
Yeah.
me. I didn't end up getting PS4 until later and other systems till later. And so coming in late, I think I had some advantages there. And I ended up enjoying the system and using it as my primary console until early 2016 when I started to look over at what my friends were playing on Xbox and on PlayStation. Feel kind
Mm.
of bummed out because Nintendo was slowing down, clearly gearing up for the Switch. We didn't quite know it at that point, but they were slowing down and we didn't have really any third party support. It was actually Star Wars Battlefront that I really wanted to play. I'm a
Yeah.
huge Star Wars fan, so around that time that game's launched, again, saved up a little bit of money, made some trade-ins, and got a PS4, and kind of forgot about the Wii U for a little bit. And a lot of my appreciation for the system has come in hindsight during the Switch era, going back to the machine, and also during that period of time from like 2014, mid 2014 to holiday 2015, where I was using the system so much.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things like you were saying. During 2014, you landed there straight away. I mean, I imagine you had Virtual Console at that time,
Yeah,
so you even in the gaps, because there were a lot of gaps um, between any of the releases like Donkey Kong, New Xenoblades. Like it felt like forever. But on the flip side of that, it was kind of good in a way because the Switch, for as much content as it has and stuff is just coming out so fast. Like there's no way you can play it all. Like I have
yeah,
so much interest in certain things, but I just have to say, look, let's put that to the side. I'm not gonna get around to it. If I do it, if it goes on sale one day, and there's like, I'm not a massive hoarder with new games, but there are a few which is unheard of before, like the Switch for me, is to buy a new game, and I still haven't touched it. But the good thing about the Wii U, I found, I suppose, it's like I don't want to say a blessing in disguise, but trying to take a positive from a negative is like a game will come out and it's kind of, I don't want to say all you've got for a while, but you're like, okay, this is the big new release, something like Xenoblade Chronicles X or Star Fox Zero, even Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. All of those, it was like, right, I can sink my teeth into it. Maybe if I don't like it straight away, I can give it another go and another go, and really try and get some love out of the games. Because
yeah.
sure, there wasn't loads on the Wii U, but what did hit, there were some really important titles like Splatoon. I feel like people sometimes give the Wii U obviously a hard time, but Splatoon's one of their most important franchises now and one of their biggest series, especially multiplayer wise, which is not really a thing for Nintendo. Like before the Wii U, this was their big online shooter. Like you didn't have that on the Wii, didn't have that on their handhelds. It was suddenly this new IP, which everyone's always wanted. Just at E3s, they're like, well, we want our Pikmin, we want our Zelda, but we want to see Nintendo deliver a new IP that's fresh and exciting, and potentially like online multiplayer. And suddenly here it is, and it's got a sequel and a third we're waiting on. So there's actually a lot with the Wii U that is, like you say, sometimes you look back retrospectively and you don't necessarily realize it at the time, but when you look back, you go, actually, some of it was really, really important, whether it was a mistake or whether it was like positives at the time and everyone was celebrating it. Some of the things like Splatoon, for example, really have impacted their future with the Switch and probably 10 years down the line.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's a really great point. I think that the Wii U's library is small, but it's really curated. You talk about having, okay, this is gonna be my one game from Nintendo for a couple months, and because of course, when you read into the behind the scenes information there, and you see how Nintendo was struggling transitioning to HD development, and their pipeline was being slowed down and such. So each release really had an importance behind it, because like you said, that's your game for maybe even the quarter, right?
yeah, totally.
And I think that something that's important to note is that usually they were very high quality. I think that people look at a Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival or a Ultra Smash or a
Mm,
Star Fox Zero and point to the Wii U having a shaky library, but the hits are so much more plentiful than the misses. You play these games and they're so polished, and like you said, so important. Splatoon is excellent. I played the first Splatoon every day from when it launched in May 2015 until the end of that year. I mean, that game was so foundational for a lot of what Nintendo would become. Same with something like a Mario Maker, and
Mm.
even a more insular experience like a Tropical Freeze, as you said, is arguably one of Nintendo's best 2D platformers of all time. You know?
Yeah, it's just a shame. I don't think people realized that at the time when it
Yeah.
released. People were just like, "Huh, okay, it's a new Donkey Kong. Like, cool, good for them." But it was only years later that you really saw that game's like praise coming through, and people, like you just said, saying one of the best 2D platforms of all time, because people were just angry it wasn't, it was retro working on Donkey Kong again, and people's eyes were rolling. And wait, it's not Metroid. We're not getting Metroid on the Wii U. What's going on? We don't want another Donkey Kong. And then it releases, and you know, not a lot happens. And then here we are years down the line, and people love it, and it's been ported since, and it's sold millions. So I think it's probably outsold the Wii U version by now, like software wise. It's probably, yeah, more than outsold it. It's probably doubled it. But there are games on there, like you say, the Ultra Smashes, the Animal Crossings. You think maybe what could have been, but even if something as good and high quality as, say, New Horizons, if that made its way to Wii U at the time or something similar, I don't think it would have saved it. I really don't. I think from day one, it was kind of doomed. Just anything from like the marketing to how it looked to the price to the lineup to the third party, like the list goes on, and people have, you know, gone over it countless times, I'm sure, but they're kind of obvious things that unfortunately Nintendo didn't have the vision to see at the time. Not that any of us are like CEOs of a multi-billion-dollar company, but these things looking back, it kind of seems baffling. Like I recently watched in preparation for this the actual reveal at E3, and it was just every bit of the presentation when it changed from like the gameplay to the text, it was saying play on the new controller, experience the new controller. And you look back and you're like, what were they trying to advertise? So many people probably got confused, like, your casual general market people walking into supermarkets, game store, whatever, like, what is it? I mean, it's got Wii in the name, so that doesn't help. Like, is it a successor? Is it an add-on? Like, so many people, I think it was so convoluted in the messaging for exactly what it was, and then it was so expensive as well. And like, my last sort of point to tie that up is, you have all of that, and then the games, for me, like my experience of it, it was, oh, it's all of that, and it's playing a Wii game, or it looked like it because it was New Super Mario Bros. U, or it's showing footage of Wii Sports as well. Like, these are games that were years old at that point, and it was just really strange. Rather than the Switch, everything was fresh. Apart from, now I think about it, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was there, but that turned out to be one of their better decisions to get that over. But yeah, there was definitely weird signals from the start. Do you remember like the E3? I think it's 2012 conference that I was just mentioning.
So I actually didn't watch that live. Back then, I was still getting that sort of information from Nintendo Power, actually.
Oh
So
man,
I couldn't really read the room the way you were able to, but I think you did a excellent job summarizing the laundry list of issues that the
yeah,
console
thanks.
had. And I think you touch on a lot of important things, and I think one of those being the idea that probably the Wii U just couldn't be saved, and I think we saw that. We saw Mario Kart come out in the aggressive ways that they were trying to incentivize people to buy more games, having that promotion where I think you bought Mario Kart and you got one of these like 8 games for free, and
Yeah,
Smash that year. So many that was the make it or break it, and nothing happened. The Wii it didn't move. It was stuck. And so, like you're saying, they were so focused on that Wii branding, which had already plateaued before the system even released. I mean, the late Wii U years were not moving software really. It
no,
sold a ton, but people were not interested anymore in what the Wii had to offer, and the Wii U was tied to an identity that no longer had any cachet in the market, which was surprisingly short-sighted for a company that is so visionary. But another important thing I think you touched on is the idea of these games being ported to Switch.
mm,
It's it's become clear to the majority. I think the way it was clear to us when we owned the system at the time that these games have so much to offer. It was the machine. It wasn't the software that let the Wii U down. You know.
Absolutely. I mean, that just really sums up how important it is to get this machine out there, this new, the Wii U at the time, and really get the branding and the marketing on point. Because unfortunately, no matter how good the games were, as we've seen with Pikmin 3, Super Mario 3D World, even I suppose Breath of the Wild at the end, but Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, like there's so many there, and the list will go on that they are really high quality games, and people were just like, not interested. Like, it's on the Wii U. I wouldn't mind playing it, but it's on the Wii U. And I mean, I don't know about in the States, but I don't really remember a price drop for it. Or even like the Switch has the Switch Lite and the DS, they had cheaper models, the 2DS, and the DS had a price drop. All of these things just really weren't batting in the Wii U's favor. It was not meant to be, I think. But at the same time, like I keep like reiterating, it's one of those things where if this hadn't happened, I don't think the Switch would have been as successful as it is now. And sometimes, as companies, in my opinion anyway, you need things like this to really get things shaken up, rather than just, I think, sailing after such a success with the Wii, doing like 100 million and just having software sales at 20, 25 million plus. I don't want to say maybe there was a bit of arrogance to it, but from an outsider's point of view, it certainly felt that way. It felt like they could just ride the success of the Wii with slightly altering the branding and doing the same sort of games but slightly different, obviously in HD, slightly shinier. There wasn't a whole lot going on that felt like this is a must play system. This is the brand new thing that you need to do, that nothing else can do. You need to get out and buy this box. But fortunately for them, they actually managed that with a Switch, and I'm so glad that they seem to turn things around. But nevertheless, like, I do, as much as it probably seems like I'm bashing the Wii U, like looking at it really negatively, like you, I actually have a really soft spot for it. And if people ever want to talk about it, like yourself, it's just one of those, yeah, it was what, 4 years of just few and far between, but really high quality. When it did hit, it hit really well. I had so much like I had so much fondness of Mario Kart 8, obviously before Deluxe, but Super Mario 3D World, Xenoblade Chronicles X, Donkey Kong. I could go on, but there's so many games there where I've put in 50, 60, 80, 100 hours, and you look back and you think, was it that bad? Like, really? Yeah, I think people, like you say, purposely think of like Ultra Smash, and rightly so. There were bad games. Like, I have, unfortunately, Amiibo Festival sitting up there because I bought it for £5 for the two Amiibo. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think people just pick and choose what parts they want to remember and what parts they want to put out there. But actually, there are really, there's a lot of gold on that system, and it's a shame. And it had the best eShop. It had the best eShop, whether it's the music, the scrolling screen with just Virtual Console, Game Boy Advance, N64, Wii, DS. Like, that's what we wish the Switch could do. As much as we praise the Switch, that is where they need to, or I would like them to catch up. And hopefully we get something like that at E3 with maybe some Game Boy games. That would be really nice. But yeah, the Wii U software wise and that eShop, they're just, that has not been topped. So that eShop is so good.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad you brought up the eShop because I want to hammer that home because that's why my Wii U is still plugged in and I still use it
Yeah,
constantly.
same.
I think that there is no better console for experiencing Nintendo's history than the Wii U, because it took a while for that Virtual Console rollout to happen. They were so selective in those early days about, okay, and here's Mario again and all of this,
They're
which
still
was
doing that.
they're still doing it, but on the Wii U, it was especially weird when you could go to that full Wii Virtual Console in the Virtual Wii menu. But when the Wii U's selection finally got there and you had everything, not only do you have, the tentpole marquee titles from the key franchises, but you also have so many smaller games that are equally important to Nintendo's history but are completely overlooked. Things like Earthbound Beginnings, things like Sin
Yeah.
and Punishment, things like Kuru Kuru Kuru, and which is a really fun GBA puzzler that had no North American release until the Wii U eShop. There are so many games and series that were given a new life on the virtual console, and even things like a Metroid Zero Mission and a Fusion were able to be seen up on the TV for the first time outside of Game Boy Player and be really accessible again. And there's just something to be said for that curation and accessibility that no other Nintendo system offers.
Oh, definitely. I think like with the Switch, NES, and SNES Online, like it is great to have. Obviously, Mario 3, A Link to the Past, games like that are beloved. But I think equally, like you say, it's so important for people to play stuff like Fusion and Zero Mission, and the list goes on. It's so important because you can't just rely on one or two titles from these franchises when you try and claim they have this rich history of 10, 20, 35 years at the moment. Some of them you can't just keep releasing the same three games. And it was just the Wii U, again, praising it. There's some titles there that, apart from their original release on, say, N64 or the Game Boy Advance, they've come to there and they've never made it any further, and they're kind of stuck there. And that is the best way to play them. At the moment, Metroid Prime Trilogy, you are not going to buy that on eBay for any less than like £80 at the moment. So go buy it digitally on the eShop, because I think over here it's like £20.
Yeah.
That's nothing. That's such a steal. And they're free, like incredible games. And that's just like one example. Like Donkey Kong 64, like not the most beloved game, but definitely something people should try out. And there's got to be like curiosity there. Like people have played all the country games and more recently Tropical Freeze and Returns. And there's like this ground in the middle where they've kind of, I don't want to say forgotten, but probably neglected some of the history there, where the
Yeah.
Wii U, they somehow landed there, maybe because just not enough was going on at the time, and not enough like future plans. They put these on. But it's so great to be able to know that even some of the DS games, sorry, I'm just remembering things now, like I think Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks are on there. There's
Yeah.
like trying to get hold of them and being able to play them on a TV, which is, yeah, it's definitely strange playing a DS game with like the tablet and the TV, but why not? It works, and you can pick them up for a good price. They're part of the history that is kind of not as celebrated. Like we say, it's not on the Switch. It wasn't on the Wii. And hopefully they will come to Switch, like some of these Game Boy games, like the Oracle games, maybe. But yeah, Wii U is very much a selective part of time that stuff is just stuck there. But like you say, we got the ports to Switch eventually, and it feels like that list is growing and growing. Which there's not much more I want to see come over now. I don't think it would be nice to get Xenoblade Chronicles X, but other than that, off the top of my head, we're kind of there, and the Wii U's legacy can live on and be appreciated through the Switch, which is amazing. But like we've said, it is sad. It's one of those like sort of bittersweet memories where it's like, well, I loved it, even though you're like the black sheep of the Nintendo family. It just wasn't meant to be, unfortunately. But like we say, there's great titles, best eShop, and it's just this time capsule that you can go back to. Best way is in HD. You can plug it into your TV. You can still play on the sofa, not quite on the go like the Switch, but there's variety and there's accessibility, which to me makes it really important. Like it's like I say, it's one of those things where I feel like if you love it, you really did love it at a certain point of time. And so many people seem to be going back to it. I see on YouTube people picking them up in like 2020 and 2021 and going back to it and being like, wow, I'm really surprised at the library and the content. And like we said, the eShop and the vast sort of different Nintendo titles there, like you say, almost like legacy content in a way, is really the Switch could do with that, and future Nintendo consoles, whether it's a Switch Pro. I would love to see that just brought in, bring everything home. I'm not expecting thousands and thousands of games, but just really celebrate a series like full history. Maybe not everything, but just there's only so many times you can have a Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time. Like, just give us the Oracle games, give us Metro Fusion, and I don't know, Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, like stuff like that. That's just, for some people of certain generations, they've probably never played of them, maybe even never heard of certain games like that from the 90s that are stuck on this little brick in black and white. Like, just celebrate everything. Now's the time. With all the anniversaries, now is the time. 100%.
Yeah, I think that's right on. That's exactly the sentiment I wanted to express. And I think the last thing I would say on the topic of the Wii U, and I wrote about this, so I'm stealing my own idea that I already put on CBR, but I think that the Switch is the home of Nintendo's future, and I think that the Wii U is the home of Nintendo's past. The only thing it's missing is GameCube. That's the one
Mm,
complete blackout there, which is kind of interesting and disappointing, considering that of any library, that is the most absurd to collect for price
yeah,
wise with the retro bubble and everything. So
such a shame.
it's a real shame, but I think there's something incredible to be said for the fact that from the 80s with the NES to Breath of the Wild, the Wii U encapsulates that entire portion of history in a way that Switch doesn't, as you were saying. And to be able to just have that one device and like you were mentioning, play these incredible games for $8, $10, $15, $5, $20, you can't find it anywhere else. And that's a sort of value that is important. And I truly believe personally that you can't fully appreciate both Nintendo's successes, modern successes, and their modern failings without understanding their history. And so, in my opinion, I think the Wii U is just an essential machine to own. If you want to play the past Kirby games and then look at something like Star Allies and say, okay, this is where Star Allies succeeds, but also where it fails, having played Superstar and Return to Dreamland and Amazing Mirror
Mm.
and all of these things. So, if you want that wider perspective on where Nintendo has been and where they're going, you got to get a Wii U.
Definitely, man. You couldn't have said it better. Um, it's that dusty little thing that's gonna maybe not be played every day or every week, maybe even every month. But suddenly you just have this urge. You see something on the shelf or even the eShop, like we said, and it's just you pick it up, and it just feels like 2015 again. Like you get sucked back into it. Unfortunately, there's not masses of games to chew through, but where they hit really well. And you just got to look at the praise for something like 3D World that recently came out, Tropical Freeze before that, Pikmin, and the software was there. It absolutely was, and it's just a shame. I think timing was definitely unfortunate with the release, and then Iwata obviously, unfortunately passing. It was never going to be easy, and it was probably never going to be fixable by him or anyone else that we later saw. But like I say, it's a very, very important part of the history because it came off the success of the Wii, and we dipped, and then we rose again with the Switch. And who knows how long the Switch is going to go on for, whether it's the Switch Pro or the Switch Pro 2 in many, many years. Like that branding there, they're just going to build and build and build on it. And like you alluded to, let's hope from now the library and the legacy and the content and the celebration is just built and further encapsulated in what I think is probably their greatest ever device, which is the Switch.
Yeah,
Like, hardware problems aside, it is just, yeah, oh, it's a beautiful little device.
I totally agree. I think that's a great place to end it. So, Ben, this was awesome. As far as I'm concerned, you're welcome on Backlog Banter whenever you want to come back on. I'm gonna
I'll
I'm
gladly
gonna
be back on, man.
I'm gonna force you to come back on with me after E3 and sort of parcel through some of these announcements and
Let's
talk about
do it.
whatever
Let's moan at all the old games we're definitely not getting.
Yes, yes, we're absolutely gonna do that. But thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to the audience for checking out the video. We have plenty more great content here at Backlog Banter. We're always posting, and we're gonna have a lot of E3 coverage, particularly from Nintendo. But I'll yell about Halo for a little bit too. It's all gonna happen. Don't worry about it. So with that, Thanks again, Ben, and I'll catch everyone later.
Thanks, guys.